Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and specifically welcome back to my Masterclass series. And while I know that I released one yesterday on the T22 medium, it just has to be done today because the Object 752 is for sale for the first time in a year. Not only am I going to give you an extensive breakdown of this vehicle to help you with things like getting your ace tankers or your third mark of excellence on this vehicle, but this is also going to be a commentary as to whether the 752 is worth it, and Wargaming's dubious tactics with selling this thing at a Black Friday discount. So firstly, what makes the Object 752 so special was this combination of idiot-proof armor, a bit like the 752, sorry, the T22 medium that we had yesterday, an absolute troll lower plate where unless you hit here, even if you hit the beak or the upper plate, it just doesn't really do anything, and this oscillating turret with this 8 degrees of gun depression where you can raise the gun and also hide the weak points on top of this vehicle. Combine that with an autoloader with 390 alpha damage shells means that this thing can deal over 1,100 damage in like 6.4 seconds. Oh, and it's a premium as well, so it makes bonds and makes big credits. And in today's video, I'm going to let you know why this is arguably the best tier 9 premium tank in the game. So while this is a masterclass video, I feel like I have to talk about the fact that the 752 has not been sold for an entire year, and it's coming in a Black Friday sale. Now, in this Black Friday sale, there are some things that truly are a sale. A full-blooded tier 8 French premium for £13. However, for the first time, the Object 752 has been sold, and Wargaming won £38.49. That's roughly about $50. That's not really a Black Friday sale. In fact, Wargaming have bundled this with something that you don't want, a Tankman style and 10 5x experience games, to probably mean that they can charge like a full price for this, even with a 15% discount. Wargaming know exactly what they are doing here, and that is, I guess, to bait you in with actual sale prices and then to flash the OP tier 9 in your face for a big price tag. So just how has the Object 752 been doing over the last year? Well, it has the best win ratio difference of any premium tier 9 heavy tank. It's getting close to the concept. The average win ratio of a player who plays the 752 is 51.64, and the average win ratio that they're getting is nearly 54%. This is a huge advantage over tanks like the E77 or the Tiger Mouse, which are pretty much neutral on player win ratio. And this is because the 752 has an autoloader, enabling it to dump in a big amount of damage in a relatively decent amount of time, combined with not the worst mobility, not the worst gun handling or view range, but importantly, absolutely bonkers armor. Look at this thing from the side. It has this kind of like T22-esque armor, meaning that you can over-angle it and just bait your opponents into trying to shoot the tracks. And outside of hitting this kind of support bar that juts out, they're just going to ricochet off the side. Add to this a front hull that's like 300 millimeters of effective upper hull armor, and they have to hit not just the lower plate, as we can see here, because the armor, the actual 275 millimeters of armor, extends down over the lower plate. They have to hit kind of like the lower plate on this tank. And when they're moving backwards and forwards, left and right, this is actually quite a challenging shot to hit. Add to that the vehicle has weak points on top, that if you raise the gun, you no longer have weak points on top of this tank. And even if they're spamming 310 millimeters of gold pen, this turret is just going to hold up. Now, the upper hull does get bad against good gold pen, but remember, this thing will meet tier 7s, it will meet tier 8s, and tier 8s will probably have only a 50% chance of going through the lower plate when it's angled like this. This thing is bonkers with regards to its armor layout. Crew-wise, on your command, I'd recommend Brothers in Arms, Repairs, Recon Emergency Coordination, and Practicality on this tank. For the radio operator skills, take Situational Awareness, Firefighting, and Side by Side. On your gunner, I'd recommend Brothers, Repairs, Snapshot, Deadeye, Designated Target for me because I want to know whether my opponents are damaged, and Armorer. However, many of you out there might want to drop Designated Target and take something like Quick Aiming or even Concentration instead if you think you're going to be sitting still for a while. For your driver, Brothers, Repairs, Clutch Braking, Off-Road Driving, Engineer, and Controlled Impact works on this tank. However, if you have a dedicated crew for this tank that's not coming from one of your other tier 10 Soviet heavies, which I love to have Controlled Impact on, because this vehicle isn't the heaviest, only weighing 45 tons, I'd drop Controlled Impact and I'd take Smooth Ride instead. For your loader, I'd recommend Brothers, Repairs, Safe Stowage, Close Quarters Combat, ammo tuning and intuition on this tank. And it's arguable about whether you would want to drop close quarters combat and take perfect charge instead, as you're usually not in close quarters combat while you're reloading that long autoloader. Equipment wise on this vehicle, I'm going to be taking bond vents and bond vert stabs. Look, if it's the best premium heavy in the game, you've got to go all in. To add to this, I'll be taking a turbo for one of my builds, and for my alternative build, I'll be taking a durability device instead to keep those tracks moving and keep going at my opponents. For field mods, I personally like the all-terrain suspension to be able to improve my mobility, but a lot of you who get tracked often in this vehicle might not want to take it or even go the other way, but you will be significantly slower if you do. I'm going to be improving the accuracy of this vehicle, then I'm going to be taking the view range improvement, I'm going to be taking the turbo slot on this tank, but if you're not going to use bond vert stabs, I'd probably recommend taking the firepower slot to be able to improve them. And for the final field mod, I'm going to be taking the extra reverse speed. All right, so firstly, I'm going to be rolling out on the mountain pass map. We're going to be taking a turbo, and it's going to be a mixed matchup against tier 10 and tier 8 vehicles. So immediately, well, what kind of position should you go into in this vehicle? Well, it's so darn flexible, you can really go anywhere. When you've got that 8 degrees of gun depression, you can work ridge lines. When you've got this ridiculous armor, which you can either side scrape or just come around the corner at 45 degrees and hope your opponents miss your lower plate, you can just go brawl in city fights as well. The only place I wouldn't recommend taking this tank is long-range engagements. The gun handling is just not that good, and you really want to catch your opponent and dump 3 rounds in, and you don't want to be in some kind of awkward scenario where you're firing one and then you think, like, do I have to then suffer with like a 30-second reload on this tank? So definitely go to positions where you're going to have opportunity to catch tanks. And this little T69, they seem to have got themselves caught in this scenario. So let's just come around the corner. I'm going to whiff shot, repair our track so we can get around the corner so the TNH doesn't catch me. And we can see this T69, they managed to penetrate 1 shot on me, but we penetrated 3 on them. And that's most of their tank out the game. Should really turn my turret around, but I think the T69's reloading now anyway, so it's not so much of a big deal. And that's really what this tank is. It's an all-in beast. I actually got really unlucky with those rolls there. Oh, I lost pretty much 100 damage on my average rolls. Remember, this thing's magazine potential is 1,170 with those average shells. So I'm thinking, I want to try and bait the shell here from the TNH, but I do want to come around the corner. Oh, maybe not like that. But now I see the Tiger Mouse misses. We're going to hopefully get the track back on quickly. On this kind of a map, it was really a 50-50 as to whether I wanted to use a turbo or whether I wanted to use a durability. So I'm angling at 45 degrees here to hopefully be able to bait him. Unfortunately, I don't quite manage to bait him. He puts in a shot through the back of my tracks and also into my hull. However, I hit him 3 times for him hitting me once. Those are pretty darn good trades. I could understand this vehicle if Wargaming had given it really low hit points, but the fact that I've only got like 300 hit points less than that Tiger Mouse, he might even be using a durability device on that vehicle. The TNH has about 200 more than me, and they're definitely using a durability device on this vehicle. This thing's bonkers. So this is a very important part of the video of what I'm showing you here, is that you must raise your gun when you're facing your opponents, otherwise they will be able to catch the weak point on top. If I was to use my gun depression, I don't know, maybe the 60TP could be able to catch it. So make sure you don't get lazy and raise your gun. Talk about getting lazy, I don't know what this 263 is doing, but luckily my idiot-proof armor turns him into a bit of an idiot in that scenario. And I'm going to hopefully angle my armor here to avoid the Tiger Mouse. I do, and I even clutch a shot into the lower plate. Oh man, they probably didn't expect that, right? The 263 loses their entire tank, and I somehow also managed to punish the Tiger Mouse there as well. And that is just what this tank does. Its crazy armor layout is confusing as heck to be able to engage. Average players will struggle trying to deal with this tank, and the below average players will probably Alt F4 and go play a game where you can't buy better tier 9 premium tanks for £36 at Black Friday, probably. But that's if they don't just go and pay themselves to be able to get a tank like this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this tank doesn't have its issues. It definitely does, against really high penetration rounds, or against opponents that realize that if they can manage to get it to fire its 3 shots, then it's got like 30 seconds of reloading. But the thing is that so many people in World of Tanks, even though they know of this vehicle's capabilities, they just don't seem to want to do anything against it. They don't want to push it while it's reloading. Maybe because this is what happens when the 263 does. Although I wouldn't really claim that that was the most intelligent way to push this tank. It would have probably been better if he'd just come around the corner with the TNH VZ51, tried not to jump on me, and tried to deal with me that way. In this kind of a scenario, we're kind of outnumbered on tanks and hit points right now. This is just about hanging on and hoping that the TNH is going to whiff, or maybe even that the 60 fires, and then maybe I'll have an opportunity to go for the TNH. Again, you see me raising my gun. I cannot stress how important it is to get used to aiming up and just holding down that right mouse button to lock the turret position. Because if you don't, it's very easy to be able to deal with. So what I was doing there was actually trying to bait the TNH around, and luckily it seems to have worked out. They're going to bounce a regular round off my tank. We're going to hit their tracks once again, and maybe we're even going to go for the full track there. Doesn't matter, I guess, if we don't low roll those shells. In fact, a slight high roll into 2 average shells, and that is a tier 9 autoloader vanquished in a close game. We're only ahead by 1,000 hit points now, and this is just what this tank does. It fires 3 shots, it reloads, it either makes a pressure play to force its opponents to make mistakes, or it waits until the situation forces them to make mistakes. And then once you get to do enough of this, remember this is a tier 9 premium, it's going to make full-blooded credits for each of the shells you put in, so you don't need to worry so much about loading gold in this tank. In fact, the gold rounds in this vehicle are very necessary. The step up in penetration is 70 millimeters. We're talking about getting pretty much an extra 30% penetration here for the gold rounds on this tank. And while you will lose some of that shell normalization, they can allow you to do things like go through a Jagdpanzer 100, for example. Now we know that the 60 TP fires, we're just going to punish them. And it's interesting because the 60 TP is a terrifying tank, right? It's got 750 alpha. But even if I only hit 2 out of my 3 shells, that means within like 3.5 seconds, I'm doing 780 damage to him, and he's a higher tier heavy. And slowly but surely, while this tank, it's not going to have huge damage games very quickly, but it just consistently pumps out the damage and leaves very little opportunity for your opponents to be able to fight back. Again, I'd recommend that you take intuition on this vehicle, so you can choose when to switch out from your regular rounds to your gold rounds. We're just locking that turret because I was worried the Tiger Mouse was going to aim for it. I'd love to see them ricochet here, but you know what? If they're not going to try and shoot me, I'm just going to shoot them, you know, force them to make the play. The Tiger Mouse actually hits the 430 behind me, so I'm going to be able to use the extra shot to finish them off. I bounce a bat chat. I'm trying to figure out where the bat chat is. There's 2, so they could be anywhere in this kind of scenario. And having fired the last gold round that hopefully I'm going to fire in this game, we're going to start loading regular rounds. Bounce 3 heat rounds from a bat chat there. Unfortunately, the extra one manages to go through. And we're just clapping, man. 3,700 damage blocked, 6,000 damage in a tier 9 heavy, and I'm hoping that we can get just a little bit more in this game, right? So even with the turbo on this tank, you can see that it doesn't really have the best of top speeds. You know what? If you were so inclined, you could put a level 3 experimental turbo on this vehicle. However, you'll be lacking the grunt in the engine from the horsepower. So down to you, really, as to whether you want to try and have that extra gun handling, but to lose that engine power. I don't really think it's a tank that you need to invest an experimental turbo on. I think there are better tanks for you to be able to invest into them. But then again, this is the best premium heavy inside the game, right? At least at tier 9. And I'd say, all in all as well, you know, you've got your Skoda T56, you've got your BZ176, right? K2, in my opinion, is probably the best one, but that's definitely not the most flashy, right? But this vehicle, at tier 9, to make bonds and to have that lovely tier 9 matchmaking, yeah. I'm just going to go out there and say that I think this is the best premium heavy in the game as a tool for just making credits. And just a great game. 7,500 combined and 3 kills in about 7 minutes. All right, so round 2 in a disgustingly nice matchup for this tank. The only way it could be better if there were some tier 7s that we could farm. So in this game, we're going to be dropping the turbo. We're going to be using the durability. And I really want to highlight just how outrageous this vehicle can be in a nice matchup like this. Almost to the point of where it kind of makes the game pretty easy mode, right? So unfortunately, the CC67, I guess they just pushed a Skoda out the way. I hope I actually went to go and report the player. You can still report people in game by just holding your control key, right-clicking them. And I do recommend that if you see people push players out like that you probably should. Whether it's actually going to make a difference or not, Wargaming at least like to pretend like it makes a difference. The only real way to punish players who do that is to actually do custom tickets on the Wargaming support page. That's the real way to punish physics abuse. So in this situation, I'm going to use the third person to be able to shoot the wall down and to be able to hit the Centurion at the same time. Connect the third shell there as well. And maybe the third? Maybe we connected the third after the second shell. Possibly not. We could only check in the post-game stats. Honestly, this vehicle, it does feel as if it's quite therapeutic as well, because you have so much downtime in between your magazines that you can just chill, or you can alt-tab, go on your desktop, answer a message, I don't know, go watch a YouTube short. Bloody hell. How about just, actually look at the mini-map and think about what is the next place that you need to go. Alright, so the CC67, let's see if they're any good when they're not pushing Skoda T50s around the corner. Doesn't look like it is. And honestly, I can't think of any other tier 9 where I could just so nonchalantly drive out in front of vehicles and just be so unworried and then just chill. I think I am probably on my desktop here or answering questions in Twitch chat. You can really just get those 30-second windows. No, oh, hello, Mr. Moisian. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't come and get me, Nice to see that you're unpainted with no field mods. No durability device either. Ouch. Unfortunately, I have the wrong kind of ammo loaded here. I've only got AP, and it's quite low chance, I guess, to be able to go through that Moisian's lower plate unless I hit it flush like that. That's 3 rounds in there. They shoot our tracks. Again, am I just going to chill again? But why not? Why not? Take a breather. Just go, what are they going to do? In this kind of a scenario, right? And now you're packing with the durability device nearly 2,000 hit points. You have that longevity as well. So really, this tank is just... The pat in the tank is telling me to fall back. Nah, mate, you know who I am. I'm not patting the tank, to say the least. Bit of a misplay there by me. I think I got a little bit lazy. But the result is still the same, and that's over 1,000 damage dealt to the 5100. But I do actually take a good shot from the Scorpion there. Looks like they managed to hit my lower plate clean. But I'm hoping that I'm spotting these tanks and actually get a bit of spotting on the Scorpion as well, so it's not that bad of a trade in this situation. And I guess the only thing that you really have to worry about in the 752 is kind of getting all in. So you definitely want to try and control the engagement, fall back, try and use your allies to be meat shields for you. It's definitely a predator tank within that regard. But there's just really not much that our opponents have too much of a chance. And unfortunately, it looks like this TNH VZ51 is stock as well. Mate, if you had like 38 pounds, you wouldn't ever have to play a stock tier 9 heavy, right? You could just get... Yeah, I don't know. This vehicle, I'm quite surprised Wargaming is selling it again, because I do think it's a tank that's toxic for the game. It is overpowered. It's probably the first overpowered tier 9 premium tank that Wargaming have made. Can't really think of another one. This one truly is better than the average tier 9. And I don't really see people complaining about it. But I've got a bad feeling after this Black Friday that the quality of tier 9 matchmaking, at least for your heavies, is going to be substantially worse than it was before. So I'm going to hang on to this AP shell here. Hopefully it's going to be worth holding on. Looks like I see the Scorpion knock down the tree and also knock down a slight building. And, okay, the accuracy not bad enough to not connect that shell. And just like that, in 5 minutes, we've managed to pack 7,300 combined, pretty much. And now we're just going to reload, go after Mr. Captain Udez. What's he going to do? I can overmatch the side of his vehicle. And now, again, am I going to go for a full reload with only 2 shells? Yes, indeed. Run the mill down. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there's really not too much more for me to show you about this tank. And that is, it's just a super simple vehicle to play. It's super simple. All you have to do, raise the gun when your opponents are shooting at your weak point. Just angle your armor pretty much like this and keep moving so they don't hit your lower plate. and then just load the right ammunition for the job. Know whether your 240 millimeters of standard pen are going to go in, or whether you're going to have to load those golden APCR rounds to grind your opponents out. And the result is going to be credits upon credits upon credits. 255,000 credits profit, 175,000 credits profit, and 210,000 credits profit. And while not every game is going to go like this, there's a reason why this tank has best-in-class performance outside of a Concept 1B. And so while Wargaming can put this at the back of their black market sale without even really giving it a discount when we consider that they're bundling in 5 times experience and some Tankman style. If you were thinking about investing money in getting the best premium heavy as a tool for making bonds and making credits, you really can't go wrong with a 7.52. And in the 20 battles that I played in this tank when I was tryharding to 3 market, for the first 6 I was getting 3,670 damage per game. That's a 10 battle streak with 4,000 damage per game, and the final 3 to get the 3rd market over 4,000 damage per game as well. If you try hard in this tank, it's more like a tier 10 than a tier 9. And now that Wargaming is selling this vehicle, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of them in the matchmaker, I just want to spend a minute showing you how you can kind of counter the 7.52. So firstly, you must aim at the lower plate of this vehicle. Don't think that the mid plate is enough. It must be the lower plate. And for you to have a 50% chance, you need to have 200 millimeters of pen. Your next option is don't get baited into shooting the side of this vehicle. You must be pretty much like this, and then you want to shoot towards the middle of this vehicle, just under the space protection to be able to get it. My other tip is if the 7.52 is using its gun depression, then you can manage to pen these with 190. But again, a good 7.52 player isn't going to use their gun depression very long, as they're going to raise the gun and troll you in that way. By far, my best bit of advice is not to allow the 7.52 to dictate the combat. Remember that after it fires, it will have at least a 30-second reload. You must make the 7.52's life a living hell after it's fired its 3 shots, as it's a problem that if you don't deal with in that time, it's just going to get worse. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my deep look at the Object 7.52. Really hope this video was useful for you. If it is, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about Wargaming bringing the Object 7.52 back for Black Friday. And could you even really consider buying a premium tank for £38.49 to be a sale? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.